Hello, I am Tanya, and in this video, I am going to demonstrate a coaching initial session. I have got a dear friend and fellow rapid transformational therapy coach, Beccy, joining us. And Beccy's going to be the client, and I'm going to be the coach. And this is the way that this conversation is going to unfold. So, if this is a topic of interest, please stick around. Hello, Beccy.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, how are you doing today?
All right, thank you. Yes, I'm good. I'm good.
Fantastic. I was just saying to the audience that this is our first coaching session. You're going to be the client and I'm going to be the coach. And
Yep.
in this session, we're going to cover off our working together arrangement and then
Yep.
start tackling a little bit of the presenting goal that you want to sort of like work through as part of a coaching agreement. Is that okay with you?
Yep, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, as part of our terms and conditions of our working together agreement, I sent you a document which outlines your responsibilities as a client and my responsibilities as a coach. And do you have any particular questions on that, or is there any kind of points that we want to sort of like clarify?
No, I don't think so. It's all very clear and comprehensive. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah. So for the benefit of the audience, I'm just going to sort of relay a couple of points that
Cool.
in terms of a client, it is your responsibility to turn up to these sessions, play full out, be open and honest,
Yep.
and take full responsibility for the steps that you need to put in place in order for you to get the transformation that you're
Yep.
seeking and achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And me as the coach, I am here to help guide you in this journey. I am going to let you gain the insights, and at the same time, I am responsible in being on time, providing you with maybe some holding up the mirror,
Hmm.
providing some kind of challenging questions in order to get you to get the breakthroughs that are going to aid you in your transformational journey. Is that all good?
Yep, sounds great.
Fantastic.
Okay.
So, in terms of the way that we are going to tackle this, we've agreed that the topic that you want to sort of cover off is gaining more confidence and increasing
Mhm.
your self-esteem as a
Yes.
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 And we're going to touch base on a fortnightly basis. And
Hmm.
in that kind of intervening fortnight, I will give you some exercises for you to undertake. So,
Okay.
in order or to sort of like give the terminology, Beccy, did you have a good experience at school? So, me using homework, is that going to be a trigger for you?
No, no, homework was fine. I'm such a dinosaur that we didn't really get that much then. No,
I'm going to
that's
be a
no
hard
trigger.
taskmaster. And so I tend to refer to it for people that are not comfortable
Yeah.
with homework as
Yeah.
motivational tasks. And in
Yeah.
terms of your bandwidth and capacity, how much would you be able to devolve in within that kind of 2 week period to do some additional work?
You mean in terms of timing? How much time would I be
Yes,
able to
how much
allocate
time?
to
Yeah,
it? I'd say probably an hour.
perfect.
Yeah, is that about
Yeah.
right?
And that's totally fine. It's just so then I know I'm not giving you 10 motivational
Yeah.
tasks to do that will sort of cut it down to one or two that would maybe
Yeah.
take like between 20 minutes to 30 minutes each.
Yeah.
And then we can sort of touch base on how.
But I mean, obviously, if I'm finding that really beneficial or part of what you're working with me on, it could be that I'd be doing a little bit of something every day so that it would build up as to be more than an hour altogether.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's rather than just sitting down for one task.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And would you feel comfortable with that if we did something that was like a daily activity that you would do and then maybe a self-reflection at a kind of
Yeah.
midpoint?
Yeah.
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 Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And in terms of the type of coach that you want me to be, do you want me to be a kind of more I'm not saying that I'm not going to be tactful because I'm coming from a place of kindness and compassion,
Yeah.
non-judgment, but do you want me to be fairly strict in terms of holding up the mirror and challenging you? Or is it something that we check in on a like every fortnight at the beginning of the session and you let me know how you're feeling that day and what type of coach you want me to be on that occasion?
I think that is really useful. I mean, I know that I like being challenged in terms of I really like understanding the whys and the wherefores of why I think and behave the way I do. And that's how hopefully we both help other people do that. But it is also being mindful that depending on what's been going on and how I'm feeling, that I may not be up for it being so strict.
Hmm.
And I know that you are very good at determining the mood and
Hmm.
determining the level to go in. So it's still achieving the same result of asking me to
Yeah,
look at things, but maybe being a little bit more gentle if that's what's
yeah.
required.
No,
Yeah.
that's absolutely brilliant. Have you got any questions, or will we sort of like just start our first session today?
Yeah, just get started. Yeah.
Perfect. So, in terms of the agenda for today, could you tell me what exactly would you like to sort of like gain after our conversation today?
Hmm. Um, Cracky, because self-esteem and self-confidence is such a big topic. But I think what may be useful it's that difference between you feel confident in what you're doing and how you present yourself. And self-esteem, I think, is more in terms of how you value yourself. And I think I'm very, very good at being self-confident when I know what I'm doing and being able to be there to help others. It's more the self-value that I have that voice still in my head that if I'm having a low day or I'm not feeling particularly great or I've had a couple of setbacks, it's that then gets chipped away so that I doubt the value that I'm giving to others, maybe, or I'm hearing that critical voice that's saying, "Ah, no, you're rubbish, and you're no good at this, and just go and start sweeping roads or something, see if you can't muck that up."
So, touching upon what you've said, that negative voice, can you give me, like, you've given an
Hmm.
example, go and sweep roads, which is a bit extreme, but it just shows the intensity that
Yeah.
that voice can come
At
across.
times, yeah, at
Hmm.
times. I think it's for me, it's that classic difference of logically, that's not true. Logically, that that voice isn't real and it's not even yours most of the time. It's a hangover from other people or parents, but it's persistent and it's ingrained, and it's not as simple as just saying, "Ah, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real," because of the effect it has. So some days are better than others in being able to recognize that and not give it such a big voice. Other times that voice is, as you say, it's really quite extreme and it's
Hmm.
really knocking everything. And if I had to think of some key phrases, um, it's you always make you make stupid choices. You really have wasted time, you've wasted money, you've wasted effort, you've made ridiculous choices. You've got nobody else to blame but yourself. What do you expect? And
Hmm.
it's that feeling really small and sort of beating yourself up, and then that's what then hits the value.
Hmm.
Because logically, and if I was coaching somebody else, I'd be all over that and be
Yeah.
able to sort of really talk through people. But with that understanding that actually when that voice is playing, it takes quite a lot of effort to really understand where it's coming from and what you can do in the moment. So, which is why, I love how you explain the motivational exercises or the homework, because it probably is something you need to do on a day-to-day basis in order to
Hmm.
build that resilience so that
Yeah.
you've got the chops to be able to deal with that voice when it does hit you with an
Hmm.
extreme on some days.
Yeah.
So yes, probably there.
Hmm.
I think would be a good place.
No, that's absolutely spot on, and it's really useful to get that
Mm.
insight that some days can be better than others, and
Yeah.
it's about what do we need to put in place to
Yes.
enable you to cope better on the days where that voice is louder for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of the work that you've done so far, Beccy, have you identified any patterns of when those days are worse
Mm.
days versus the better days?
Mm. Yes, I think it's when I've tipped into feeling overwhelmed,
Hmm.
when I don't feel that there's too much and that I'm then not doing anything well, and that just can create that freeze. And then that's when that voice comes in, to beat me up and think, well, what do you expect? And, you're being ridiculous and just focus. And everybody else has got stuff going on. What makes you so special? And just get on with it, and all of that. So I think, yes, because there are days where I'm juggling quite a lot and I allow that. But on other days, I'm juggling quite a lot and feel amazing and fantastic. So I think probably, and it is the classic, it's dependent on, and I wish it wasn't the case, but I think it's true for most people, it is dependent on what feedback I'm getting. So
Okay.
if I feel that I've had some level of feedback that what I have done has been of value to others, then I feel okay. I'm not great at valuing it for myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that voice will then go, yay, come on then. We've got her. We can get in here now.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of that external, then
Mm.
do you value the external more like higher than the internal, or is it because the internal has always been negative? Has or should sorry, if I rephrase that, has the internal ever been positive, even when the external has been perceived as a negative? Have you thought, well, wait a minute, no, I've got
Occasionally,
this.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't say that
okay.
was dominant.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, I wouldn't say that was dominant much. Yeah. And again, it's that thing of logic versus
mm-hmm.
feeling. Because
Yeah,
logically, of course, I know that. And there are days where I can absolutely just go, oh, it's not my problem. It's how they were. And then, I'm not responsible for other people perceive. Yeah. But there is still, I know you and I have talked about it before, that good girl complex
yeah.
that reigns supreme of, no, it's
Mm-hmm,
really important actually that people see me as being good.
mm-hmm.
And, that is really important. And even though logically that's not always going to be the case, and I suppose it comes down to, and I know you've been brilliant at helping me with this before, um, that feeling, good enough
Mm-hmm.
on your own, and not beating that drum of, and it's okay to value yourself more than other people value you.
Yeah,
And that is actually the bedrock, actually, of really good
yeah,
sort of mental resilience and strength.
yeah.
Um, which most of the time I do, but I am aware that when it doesn't, that can derail me.
Hmm. Can we touch upon like some of the feelings associated?
Mm.
So you
Yeah.
mentioned overwhelm, so that
Yeah.
could potentially be a trigger, but what is
Mhm.
the feeling then when that internal voice rises? And even though logically you
Mm.
want to refute it, but you're not quite able to?
Okay, feeling something overwhelmed. What comes with that? Shame.
Mm,
I should be doing this better. What's wrong with me? I'm guilt
mhm,
that I haven't necessarily been how I think I ought to have been, or been perceived the way I feel I should. Um, at times resentment,
mhm.
a little bit of anger sometimes, where I might be angry at that response, but more often than angry at myself.
Okay, that's that.
Yeah.
I thought that might be when it's
Yeah.
sort of like coming to. So,
Yeah.
in terms of the shame, the guilt, and then the kind of anger and resentment,
Mm.
mainly directed to yourself, is
Mm.
that because of that identity of trying to be the good girl all the time?
Yeah.
Or, yeah,
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It comes from that long pattern and that ingrained habit of I have to be a certain way in order to be accepted by others.
Yeah,
And when you say it out loud, it sounds so, oh, don't be so silly, don't be
yeah,
ridiculous. We know that that's not the case. But yeah, if it's something that you've carried a long, long time, I think you're right. That's where the work needs to happen because you're not dealing with logic.
yeah, absolutely.
Emotions are not logical.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, we know that there are ways of change
Yeah.
that. But even as coaches, we still stumble too. We
Oh,
still need to have
absolutely.
that,
Hmm.
check in and really good friends and
Yeah,
coaches.
absolutely. Absolutely. So that underlying good girl
Mm,
belief and
mm,
identity that you need to show up a certain way to then
yeah,
warrant getting external and internal
yeah,
validation,
yeah,
that is something that we need to work on in
yeah.
order to reframe that or either
Hmm.
let it go, whatever
Yes.
feels more appropriate to you.
Yeah.
And the good news is there are a few tools and techniques that we can actually use. And I'm going to
Mhm.
propose that we do that at the beginning of next session that we have, where we can
Yeah.
drill
Okay.
down and sort of get to the underlying kind of
Mhm.
root cause in order for us to then start chipping away at it. But let's go back to what you mentioned earlier about that feeling of overwhelm. How
Mhm.
can we make, well, maybe not make, but how can we ensure that over the next 2 weeks until we meet again, that if overwhelm starts surfacing again, that you become a little bit more aware of it? And
Mm.
what kind of coping strategies could we potentially introduce for it not to become super negative and in that kind of negative spiral that potentially we could all go into?
Yes. Um, Sorry, were you asking for
So,
my?
sorry, yeah. So when that overwhelm starts
Yeah.
rising, what
Yeah.
could you do in that
I
moment
do.
that would feel right for you to be able to create a bit of space? Because obviously you need to get out of
Yeah.
that
I think
intensity.
for me, it is physically removing myself from that situation because
Hmm.
because I work a lot from home and I've got my gorgeous pooch behind me who's always my willing accomplice if I need to go outside and have a walk. Um, I think that is probably the first step is to recognize it and go, whoa, stop and
Hmm.
stop. Because actually carrying on in this frame of mind is no good at all. This is not okay. And to just give myself that physical break to walk away, go and focus on something else, to just allow myself to breathe, to, be with Pooch and get out in nature for a little bit, and then come back. And quite often when I do that, that's when a little bit more clarity comes in. Um, I quite often then, if I look at it, I'm all about lists to, to the point where I am one of those sad people that will add something else to the list that I've already actually done just so I can cross it off. Kind of whole session on that. Um, and then come back and yeah, writing things down sort of to prioritize so that I've got a better idea of actually what needs to be done when, how important is it, and to think about, okay, the consequences if I do this but don't do that, or don't do that and do this, or if I don't do any of it, if I just
Yeah,
leave it completely, what's the worst that might happen? And it could be actually that the consequence actually is worse than me sitting down and working through that and actually doing one of it. Um, so I suppose you and I have talked about it before in reminding myself as well that if I was talking to you,
hmm,
what would you tell me? What would you say to me?
yeah,
So I remind myself to put that stick down and say, right, Tanya wouldn't beat me up like this.
hmm,
Tanya would have a few good
hmm,
words here, or to say, will you just stop and breathe
yeah,
and relax? What's going on? So I do try to remember that. So I suppose that is a strategy that I catch myself and think, actually, how would somebody who I know cares about me and my well-being, how would they respond right now? Would they be beating me up?
hmm,
Would they be
yeah,
calling me names? Would they be saying I'm useless and terrible and awful? No.
hmm,
So even if I can't in that moment do that for myself, it's good to anchor into actually that's not always true. That's
Mhm,
not the whole truth. What's another viewpoint here?
yeah.
So yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Popping
So
into my head.
no, that's absolutely superb. So I guess from a kind of motivational task over the next 2 weeks is just to do a little bit more self-reflection on a daily
Yeah,
basis to see, did I feel overwhelmed today? What did I do? So then you're
yeah,
creating another list, but this time
yeah,
of evidence that you are taking the necessary action to
yeah,
shift you from that, oh, let's just constantly keep the negative voice going.
yeah,
And it's about
yeah,
creating evidence this worked good this time or something else worked better in another situation because it is having
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mhm,
Really getting to know yourself and what actually
yeah.
works. Yeah, yeah. And I'm not always great for that because then I go into freeze mode quite often.
Mhm. And
Um,
in that, Beccy, if you don't mind me sharing,
mm,
is our body's response mechanism to actually keep us in survival mode.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
if you're overwhelmed, we
mm,
don't want all those hormones sort of like putting you in a fight or flight situation. So
mm,
freezing is probably a kinder way that it's like, okay, stop, give yourself some distance, take your pooch
yeah,
out for a wee walk and get some distance out of the current situation and the intensity of the emotions, and then be able to do the what needs to go on the list. Do I need to be kinder to myself? And
yeah,
for the
yeah,
viewers watching, for you,
mm,
if you don't have a coach or a friend that you can actually do that little mental, what would they say in the situation? Think that you're talking to a younger version of yourself, because that's what I personally do. I go
mm,
to the 5 year old Tanya. What would the 5 year old Tanya need to hear in this current situation
yeah,
from a kindness and compassion perspective rather than the adult Tanya that can just keep taking more and more of the negative, or you
yeah,
think you can take more of the
yeah,
negative. Um,
yeah,
no, that's absolutely brilliant. And in terms of another kind of activity for the kind of next kind of 2 weeks. How about that you actually maybe think of just one
mm,
more coping strategy? So we've got the distance, we've got the
mm,
self reflection and writing on the list, but maybe
mm,
think of, well, what else could you do that would
mm.
enable you to sort of like gain a little bit more perspective that it's not permanent, it's not forever?
Now, this is something that I have used before and I certainly advocated to others. If you are able to do it, and I am very much aware that if you're in that freeze mode, that it can sometimes be difficult to access that mentally. But is to think back or write down um, a memory of when it actually did feel good, or I actually
Mhm,
really felt proud of myself, or that I had done something good, and actually keep that as a little
mhm,
logs that I can refer back to that. So even if I can't really access it in the moment, it's that thing of you've been here before and you got through it. So there's another tool. Remind yourself that it's temporary.
yeah,
Although it seems like it isn't at the moment, it is because look, you did that before and you
mhm,
had that feedback, or you felt good about yourself, or you look what happened when you were kinder. And yeah, so maybe that is another thing to actually create a little log, little memory log
yeah.
to access. Yeah,
That's absolutely brilliant because this is it. In those moments, the negative can be so loud
yeah.
that you
Hmm.
just can't access the
Yeah.
positive. But you are
Hmm.
where you are today. It can't have all been negative. There
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
definitely been a lot of positive.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of people will refer to as their gratitude list and whatever that you're
Yeah.
thankful and what you appreciate for yourself, what you've
Yeah.
done and how you've shown up for you. But this is more evidence in your
Mm.
case about when you did overcome that negative voice. How did you feel in that moment?
You're right there because I know some people get a bit hung up on the whole gratitude journal, and I
Mhm.
think this is slightly different. I think you just hit the word,
Yeah.
use exactly the right words there. That's self-appreciation. So it's not if we took the word gratitude out, which and that made it appreciate, but that you're not actually being appreciative of anything external, you're appreciating something that's internal
Inside.
and but that feels real. That isn't because you and I have had this discussion before that affirmations are great and it's all very well saying if you repeat them your brain will do it, but no, actually no, it doesn't. If that feeling isn't there,
Mm-hmm.
it can be very counterproductive. Whereas this might be a good bridge
Mm-hmm.
to do that. So because they are real moments in your memory, and it's self-appreciation, and that is then something that can be built up with repetition, and that might be a easier way. So yeah, thank you. I struggle
Mm-hmm.
with, sounds awful if I say I struggle with the word gratitude. I don't, but it's just being conscious that everybody has their own language
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
what feels right.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, appreciation, or I love knowing that, or I love remembering, I love feeling that resonates a little bit more with me than sitting saying, I am grateful for, I am
Yeah.
grateful for. But but yeah, so yeah, that would be something I think that I'd find probably very useful to
Mm-hmm.
do, to have that self-appreciation log, that the what I love,
Yeah.
because that can quite often be the emotion that is really out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that you could do that as a standalone task where you
Mm.
do 20 minutes, 30 minutes of
Yeah.
remembering those, or
Yeah.
when you're going for the walk with the pooch to be able to
Yes.
get that distance, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it's the, oh, when did I feel really
Yeah.
good about
Yeah.
myself?
Yeah.
And
To
sort of
shift the
capturing
focus.
that shift in the focus.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yes, because our brains are
Hmm.
rather like runaway trains, aren't they? That once you
Yeah.
get latched onto one thought, it can just ching.
Yeah.
On
Absolutely.
you go with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
so
That's useful. Thank
yeah.
you.
So in terms of the kind of tasks for the next
Mm.
kind of 2 weeks, then the other thing that I would also want you to do is at the beginning of the next session is think of, well, where do we want to head to? Like, do we want to tackle the underlying good girl belief? Is there something else that comes? Because now that we've sort of like got the kind of brain starting to sort of like think of, oh, we've got coping strategies, we've got emotions and feelings. If
Yeah.
something else surfaces, we can put our attention to that if it is a
Yeah.
stronger priority versus the good girl. But if not,
Yeah.
we'll do the good
Oh,
girl and
yes.
then something else.
Yes. Yes, and I have a very good word that would sum that up actually. Boundaries.
Oh, superb.
Because if you're trapped into the good girl, good boy complex, but you find it difficult to put boundaries up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that can, yeah, well, it certainly made me come a cropper on many an occasion. So yeah, that would be something to really think about. Actually, when don't I put
Hmm.
boundaries in, and why, and how do I feel about that? Yes, yeah,
Okay, good.
that would be really helpful. Yeah.
Superb. Okay, Becky, I think we'll bring it to a close here.
Okay.
And in terms of how you're feeling now, what I should have done
Mm.
at the beginning is sort of like, how were you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? One being, oh, I'm maybe apprehensive, unsure, not feeling great. 10 feeling, oh, yeah, I can take on the day and the world ahead. We didn't do that at the beginning, but let's do it now. Where are you today? Where are you at this point on that scale of 1 to 10?
So it's good 7, 8 actually now
Brilliant.
because it's given me some clarity, and also remembering actually no, I'm good with this stuff. That's
Hmm.
good. I'm good at sort of doing this for myself when I get focused and allowing myself to do it.
Yeah.
And that's yeah, it's a good reminder that it is about repetition,
Hmm.
having to build those habits because that's what makes it stick. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is where, from my personal experience, if you just do it once, when
Mm.
you're in a crisis, overwhelm situation, it's hard to access that once. What did it feel like? But when you've done it 100 times, it's
Yeah.
much fresher in your head and you can go to it easier.
Yeah.
It's that list. If you've got that big list of when
Yeah.
you appreciated
Yeah.
yourself, it's much easier to go to.
Yeah. And especially if you've got something physical that you can go
Yeah.
back to.
Mhm. I know we're all
Yeah.
evidence-based. Let's track
Oh,
and
I know.
monitor. Absolutely.
Let's
No,
monitor that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Beccy, thank you very much for your time today.
Oh,
I'll
you're
send
so
you a wee
welcome.
email.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I'll send a wee email at the back of this to sort of outline the kind of motivational tasks, get your 7 score, and then we can sort of track how you're feeling each time that we have a session to make sure that that is always increasing from how you felt at the beginning of the session to how you're feeling at the end of the session. So there is kind of some value. And if at any time anything that I'm sharing that doesn't resonate, doesn't feel right, so the word gratitude didn't sort of like align with you, but self appreciation did, you just keep voicing all of those because you are unique, Beccy, and we need to make this solution work for you.
No, I appreciate that. And that's what I always love about having our conversations. You are so good at picking up on the small details that make a big difference to how I'm feeling and thinking about things. So thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. If this is content that you find useful, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see more of Beccy and more of these interactions, let us know in the comments below. We'd really appreciate that. Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks very much.